Well, after a lot of hard work, we have a speaker, we have a date, and we have a hotel for the JJ dinner, which is great because that means now you can all buy tickets and buy ads for the program. We're very excited about that. First off, our guest speaker is going to be the Honorable David Scott, Congressman from Georgia. He is going to be speaking to us on Saturday, May 5th. Dinner is going to begin at 7 p.m. We're going to have a kind of an open cash bar type of reception starting at 6 o'clock. And we really look forward to having everybody attend. Look forward to having probably 3 or 4 times as many people as we have.
More accountability in public schools for education and for our students that's coming out, going into high school and coming out of high school.
And they start not just at the high school level, though. It should really start at the middle and elementary school level. Because right now they don't teach the kids. They teach the kids to pass the test. They're not teaching the kids to educate them so they can go further, which doesn't work.
Another bill, of course, that's important to watch is the voucher bill, where our good friend Eric Johnson in the Senate is pretending that he cares about children with special needs. And so the hook is the regular public schools, they're not providing children with special needs the kind of services that they need. And so private schools are the way to go. But my question is, who said private schools were the experts on providing services for children with special needs? And I went to one of the hearings, or was leaving a room when one of the hearings was about to happen. I mean, there was a line, the room was packed, the line went all the way down the hall and around the corner of parents with children with special needs who were coming to testify. But what I heard from them was once they actually understood what the bill was doing, they realized that they were being used. And so it's pretty sad to see that this is how the Republicans are using public policy, particularly children with special needs, because they think, well, if we talk about kids with special needs, who's going to vote against that? And so they think that we get tricked. Of course, we don't. And so I'm sure that that bill will probably pass because it is who it is in terms of the author. It'll be interesting to see what will happen in the court and what we'll be able to do on the floor or even in committee. We've not dealt with it in full committee to amend and maybe even kill the bill. So I want to close my remarks in terms of legislation by talking about peach care. As you know, we've been out of session for a week now, and we're going to go another week still spending your tax dollars because work is still happening. We're still having committee meetings. People are still having to service the legislators and do what we do while we pretend that we're going to do something about peach care. And what's sad is that Nikki Randall in January, she's our vice chairman of the Democratic Caucus, introduced a bill that would help fix this problem. In January, we are in March, and we still have done nothing about peach care. And what is, funny to me, how ironic, that every day we get browbeaten with this message of personal responsibility and pick yourself up by your bootstraps and stop waiting for a handout. And those are the things that the Republicans go on and on and on about. When we want to provide health care to children, when we want to provide health care to regular families in general, when we want to make sure that every child has an education, we're looking for a handout. Why don't you exercise personal responsibility? But now when it comes to these 270,000 children around the state, now we're waiting for a handout from the federal government. Now it's okay to wait for somebody to do something for us when, by the way, we have over $600 million in our surplus. By the way, the governor has about $400 million in his discretionary account. And we need 130 to fill the gap. And so why is it that now all of a sudden it's okay to ask for a handout? And now it's okay that we don't have to practice personal responsibility? I'm still trying to understand. I'm still trying to get it. And I will tell you that the Democrats have some responsibility in this too. Because when we first started talking about this issue, and yes, let's be very clear, the problem came about in 2006 with the old Congress. Thank God they're gone. The rest of the country was doing its job. I don't know what happened in Georgia, but that's a whole nother speech. But in 2006, the Republicans refused to fill the gap on peach care or the S-chip program in general. So you know that there are 17 other states that are dealing with the same problem, where they have a gap and are not seeing the funds that they need to properly fund the S-CHIP program. And so because Congress didn't do it in 2006, now we heard at the beginning of the session that Democrats in Congress were saying, well, this sounds like a Republican problem, because a lot of the states have Republican governors. But thank God we have gotten over that. Thank goodness we've gotten over that piece. And now I understand it's been announced, and I think the Democrats have actually been saying it for a long time. And I have to mention that one of the people who has been showing some leadership on this from day one has been David Scott, my congressman, who I'm glad to see is on the forefront. But it was his idea, or he was the one that came out first with making sure that if we're going to pass this budget for the war, this supplemental budget, we ought to at least put some funds in for Peach Care. And so he talked about that in January. And finally, all of a sudden, there's this new idea that we should attach funding to the war budget to fund Peach Care appropriately. So that's what I understand will happen federally. Again, we have the funds at the state level to take care of this. And what we also found out last week when members of the Black Caucus went to D.C. was that all we had to do was fill the gap and we would have been made whole anyway. And so here we have allowed children to be put out there. We didn't know what was going to happen with them in terms of their health care insurance, because we were playing political football with their health care. And so hopefully we will be able to get this issue resolved, get back in session, and handle the people's business. So that's my take on Peach Care. One of them is Election Day registration. You should clap and be excited about that one, please. And of course, that would allow for people to actually register to vote on the day of the election. Now, some of my colleagues, and you might have read in the Marietta Daily Journal, Earl Earhart and his wonderful comments. He's just so great in the way that he expresses himself. He just makes so much sense. But according to him, I'm always playing the victim, and that's why I've introduced this bill. And so how I'm playing the victim, I'm making sure that people have access to the ballot. I don't quite understand that. But again, we're talking about Earl Earhart and the Republicans, so it's not much that you can ask for there. But this would allow for people, as I said, to go on Election Day and actually register. And they would be required to have one form of ID in addition to having some kind of utility bill that has to be due within 30 days. So it has your address, it has everything that the person would need to know that you are actually who you say you are and you live where you say you live. There are 7 states, hold on one second. There are 7 states in the country who have Election Day registration. All of them have at least a 70% voter turnout. Do you know what the turnout here is in Georgia? About 40 if we're lucky. And so there's something to say about states who are willing to do what is necessary to give people access to the ballot. Another bill that I have is to require kindergarten in the state of Georgia. Yay! And many people raise their eyebrows because one would just assume that kindergarten is required, but it is not. The mandatory school ages are 6 to 16 in Georgia. And so that means that a child could start school at first grade, never seeing pre-K, a wonderful program, never seeing kindergarten. And believe it or not, I've gotten about 15 emails of people who are opposed to the bill. You know, it's that personal responsibility crap again. Who am I to want to spend the state's funds on requiring a child to be educated in the kindergarten? And I'm saying, who am I to want early childhood education and, make sure our kids actually succeed when they get to school? What am I thinking,
She talked about several things that I was interested in, such as the charter schools. She talked about having a principal's breakfast to find out what the area principals needed in their schools, and the No Child Left Behind, which is a big question in all our minds who are in education. I believe No Child Left Behind needs a lot more work. But all in all, her speech was very enlightening, and I feel very privileged to be here to witness it.